He went from living in cars homeless to signing million-dollar deals and becoming one of the biggest stars in the league. But it wasn't all peaches and cream, as you'll soon find out. This is the story of Gilbert Arenas.
And he'll go to the line looking for the four-point play. Like this, there he goes. Rodman tries to get there, but it's too late. And that's the Arenas, and he's got a three-point opportunity.
So often in life, we see that difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. And this could not be more true than it was for my man Gilbert. Gilbert J. Arenas Jr. was born in Tampa, Florida, when Mary Frances and Gilbert Arenas Sr. welcomed a bouncing baby boy on January 6, 1982. His father was a college student in Miami, his mother a teenager, and they weren't married. When their relationship soured, his mother left with baby Gilbert in her arms, and Arenas was just 6 months old. Father Arenas lost track of his son. 2 years after he graduated from college, he was jolted by a phone call from Gilbert Arenas' mother. She'd been caring for young Gilbert in Miami because his mother was in trouble. "Come and take custody of the child," Gilbert's grandmother said. So Gilbert Sr. drove to Miami, grabbed his 3-year-old son, and headed home to Tampa. After that, Arenas lived in Tampa with his father and his grandparents. But his father wanted to be an actor. When Gilbert was 7, he and his dad piled into a car and took off for LA. However, Father Gilbert only had $25 to his name and no place to stay. The first night, they slept in their car in a Mazda at a park. Then in Hollywood, they even slept at the drugstore parking lot. Father and son spent a few nights in LA homeless in the car, until a man noticed Gilbert's son dribbling a basketball. This miraculous man liked Gilbert, and after some chit-chat offered Arenas Sr. a job at his company. Having a regular life with his father made it so much easier for Gilbert to focus on basketball. This was the first step of a new NBA star being born. By age 12, Gilbert was taking basketball extremely seriously. And just like the miracle man who took notice of Arenas when he was a homeless youth playing basketball, Arenas' high school basketball coach, Howie Levine at Ulysses S. Grant High, was an absolute godsend for him. At first, Coach hardly knew Gilbert, but after the first practice, he called him to his side and said this: "You know this game better than me. You just don't realize it. You will be my first NBA player." Wow. Talk about speaking things into existence. That's incredible. And that's all Gilbert Arenas needed. My man Gilbert knew what he had to do and was dedicated to basketball from then on. He wouldn't leave the court until he had 300 shots made in a day. While his classmates were flirting with girls and goofing off during lunch and recess, Gilbert was in the gym getting more and more and more reps in. Practice makes perfect, and this man Gilbert was building up sicko mode level workout habits at an early age. And then it came time for Arenas to go off to college. Arenas got accepted to the University of Arizona with a full-ride scholarship and found himself in a fierce competition. No one expected much from freshman Arenas, and they were teasing him, saying that he would average 0 points and 0 assists because he was set to be a redshirt freshman, as Arizona had 4 McDonald's All-Americans and some serious talent transferring in and coming from overseas. But you could say Gilbert Arenas took that personally. He changed his jersey number to number 0 to motivate him for all that teasing. He was planning to sit back and learn from the veterans as a freshman, but when his coach said the starting 1, 2, and 3 spots were open for competition, as Arenas himself put it on All the Smoke podcast, that's when my a-holism kicked in. Arenas started training harder than everybody else on the team and even studied extensive game footage of all his competition for the starting spot to make sure that he could outperform them in practice. He played so well and embarrassed them so much that every other player at his position transferred out of the school, leaving him with no competition for the starting spot. All of a sudden, Arenas was a freshman starting guard for a powerhouse basketball school. And no, he didn't average 0 points and 0 assists as his teammates so cruelly suggested. Arenas averaged 16.2 points per game and helped lead Arizona to the national championship game, where they lost to the Blue Devils, unfortunately, 82-72. This magical March Madness run boosted Arenas' draft stock up to the point where he could finally make his high school coach's prediction come true and declare for the NBA draft. Despite strong consideration from many teams in the first round, Arenas fell all the way to the second round, being selected with the 31st overall pick by the Golden State Warriors. And my man had 2 good seasons with the Warriors. So good that Arenas received the NBA Most Improved Player Award and was named Most Valuable Player of the Rookie-Sophomore game during NBA All-Star Weekend during his second year. After his second year, his agent managed to use a loophole and actually enable Gilbert to get out of his rookie deal and become a free agent in his third season, something that was unprecedented during the time. The Warriors didn't value him maybe as much as they should have, and they let him walk. And when he was offered a $60 million contract from the Washington Wizards, they failed to match it, so he left for Washington. Dude came full circle, all the way from being homeless at 3 years old, bouncing a basketball in the Hollywood streets, to a $60 million contract as a third-year player. Amazing. Washington would be a place where there were many memorable moments centered around Gilbert Arenas, that's for sure. But as anyone who remembers Arenas knows, they wouldn't all be ups. Now, things started off fantastic. He truly worked his way into stardom with the Washington Wizards, where he spent 7.5 years with the franchise, where he earned 3 times All-Star Game selection, both of his All-NBA third-team nods, and an All-NBA second-team selection. During that stretch, he was one of the league's best scorers, where he embraced the nickname Agent Zero, both for his number and for his late-game heroics, constantly hitting clutch shots with 0 seconds left on the clock. Not only that, he had an epic game where he scored 60 points against the Black Mamba himself, Kobe Bryant. That game fell within a ridiculous 30-day stretch where Arenas scored 50 points or more 3 times, which has only been done a few times in NBA history by Kobe, LeBron, Curry, Harden, Westbrook, Wade, and Allen Iverson. 6 days after dropping 60 on Kobe at Staples Center, he scored 54 against the Steve Nash-led Suns, who were one of the best teams of that decade. Arenas was flat out incredible. He even appeared on the cover of NBA Live 08. Dude's pockets was full too. His peak earning season was 2008-2009, where he was paid a $111 million contract by the Wizards. But we didn't always see Arenas on the court. Sadly, injuries really derailed Gilbert's career. He suffered a severe meniscus injury in his 5th season in 2007 that required surgery. He managed to beat that injury and come back, but injured his knee again and required surgery again. Finally, he came back a 3rd time, played 8 games before the playoffs, and got injured once again. Knowing he had free agency coming up, Arenas was savage enough to actually play with a torn up knee and had 24 points in the first half of one of his games in the playoffs. That was all he needed to show teams that he still had it. And this ended up in a bidding war that ended up getting him that $111 million contract with the Wizards. The funny part is Arenas himself has admitted that this is one of the worst contracts in NBA history, as he was basically washed by this point. But man, in that stretch between 2003 to 2006, Gilbert Arenas was one of the greatest scorers in NBA history. He was just a truly special offensive weapon, pulling up from 35 feet and getting to the rim with ease. He was kind of like an early 2000s Steph Curry in the way that he shot the ball, honestly. But anyways, after all these injuries and getting paid a massive amount of money, the off-the-court problems started to really arise with Arenas, and these problems are what has made him notorious and what most people remember him for, sadly. The guy's temperament caused him quite a bit of trouble. Let's get into it. Earning millions without much of a background of money management made Arenas spend wildly. And guys, let's be realistic now. If everyone had money, most people would probably buy luxury houses and drive luxury cars, right? There's nothing strange about it. But what if I told you Arenas used $100 bills instead of toilet paper? Oh, man, that's just nasty. Gilbert was a crazy man. He didn't take life too seriously and loved to joke around. With this unique temperament, he almost gave cancer to his teammates. Nick Young, who was a rookie at the time, suffered the most. He said that Arenas literally ruined my life. According to Nick Young, Arenas used to take him to parties and strip clubs where they were spending like crazy. He would bully him all the time and even made him dress up like a private driver and drive him and his lady friend around while they were doing things in the back seat. Basically, Gilbert Arenas was like the bad influence older cousin that essentially made Nick Young the person who he would become later. Always being in the news for the wrong reasons, partying all the time, and generally just acting the fool. That was all because Gilbert taught him to do that. That's messed up, man. Why you gotta ruin Nick's career like that? Fortunately, the friendship of these two continues. For Gilbert though, not all of these relationships ended up as sweet as Nick, and that caused a lot of fights with Gilbert Arenas and his teammates. So let's talk about how he got banned from the NBA. Arenas' most infamous off-the-court incident occurred when him and his teammate Javaris Crittenton actually pulled guns on each other in the locker room. It all started pretty innocently with a poker table. Gilbert Arenas, JaVale McGee, and Javaris Crittenton were all gambling, playing cards, and this whole thing started with a dispute between Crittenton and Arenas. The discussion between the two turned from playful to heated and then escalated to threats. Arenas said he would set Crittenton's car on fire with him in it, and Crittenton said he would shoot Arenas. In retaliation for this, on December 21st, 2009, Arenas thought it would be funny to bring 4 unloaded guns to the Wizards locker room and challenge Crittenton to shoot him with them, saying with a note, "Take your pick." When Crittenton arrived, Arenas said to choose one of the guns and shoot him. Instead, Crittenton drew his own gun, which was actually loaded, and the team all ran out in fear that a shooting was about to happen. Fortunately for everyone, no one pulled the trigger. Afterwards, both players were suspended for the league for the rest of the season, and they both got misdemeanor gun charges and were on probation. Although Arenas stated that the issue was not serious and was sarcastic about it later. How is this not a serious incident, bro? Crittenton spiraled out of control after this incident and is now in jail for 23 years for killing a mother of 4 in a gang-related shooting. Talk about a tragedy. The media backlash after this incident and the stain that would never leave Gilbert Arenas' reputation, along with even more injuries, effectively killed off Arenas' NBA career, sadly. So that's what happened to the great talent Arenas. After all those incidents, he played a little bit in Orlando and Memphis, and even the Shanghai Sharks for a bit. And then he retired. But my man, he has so many stories to tell that Agent Zero has started making podcasts. Having never been a person to mince words, Arenas is quite comfortable in his podcasts and trash talks anyone he wants. He even recently said about multiple-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo, he doesn't even understand basketball yet. Apart from his podcast, Arenas hosted a daily sports show on Complex News' YouTube channel. Here too, Arenas is hating on everyone, but we have to say that he loves LeBron very much. On a podcast, Arenas and his guest Lou Williams discuss how he is starting to hate everyone from the 90s because of how they think they're better than everyone in the modern NBA. He particularly named Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. He said Scottie and Dennis Rodman would be absolutely destroyed in the modern NBA and that they were skinny and weak and too small to guard people like LeBron. That's a debate that's raged for decades, and it's always, pretty arbitrary to compare eras, but he does have a point when you think about the fact that Dennis Rodman and Scottie Pippen were both under 240 pounds when they played, and people like LeBron are around 270 to 280 pounds, so they probably would get abused in the post, no lie. And they're definitely not quick enough to keep in front of somebody like LeBron, that's for sure. That's the story of Agent Zero, how he went from homeless to multi-millionaire to eventually being out of the league and then becoming a media personality. So I know a lot of you guys hate his takes, but hopefully you can understand his background a little bit more from this video and maybe have some respect for how much hard work he put in to make the league. Most people only know him, sadly, for that gun incident, so hope this shed a little bit more light on him. All right, guys, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.